All right, we're talking with Navy veteran Josh Thurman, co-founder of Angel Kids AI. Josh, thanks for being here today. Looking forward to hear what you guys are doing with kids and AI. Sounds interesting. But before we do all that, I always like to start off with taking us back and tell us what you did in the Navy.
Yeah, Joe. So I was a Navy SEAL for nearly 13 years. Went in late 2005, and then served on the West Coast, East Coast with the National Mission Force. Did about 11 deployments, and ended up as a troop commander. So got out as an O4, and really just had a tremendous experience. Tried to stay operational as long as I could. Hit it hard, and I was part of that post 9/11 generation. So when I was a junior in college was when 9/11 happened. I really wasn't thinking too hard about the military at that point, but that shifted my focus a little bit to think about current history and this sort of being my time to serve, and like so many generations have. So that started shifting my mindset a little bit. And then 2003 came around. That's when, and that spring is when Persian Gulf to the Iraq War kicked off, and that sort of further got me thinking. And then the SEALs had been something always that excited me, just the physical nature of it, and how incredible what the community does for our country. And so those things got me really spinning on it. And I'd always loved physical challenges. I'd walked on the track team at Wake Forest, ran the 400-meter hurdles there. So loved being fit, was doing triathlons, and then um, was really thinking about going to medical school. That's what I had set myself up to do. And then after graduating, kind of reset. Actually ended up working construction for a little bit as I was sort of figuring out life. And the more I thought about it, uh, it was something deep inside of me was telling me, hey, it's time to go serve. And I wanted to do something that was edifying, personally beneficial to me. Which being in a challenging environment like the SEALs, that was going to be that, but also have the biggest impact I could on the global war on terror. And so that's how I made my way into the SEAL community, and got into OCS route, and that's what I started in class 006 in 2005.
Yeah. So, mom, dad, I'm going to medical school. Oh no, wait.
Yeah, yeah. It was quite a switch. I went through a lot of soul searching, if you will, in that period. I gotten accepted to a number of divinity schools, considering that route, and even business school. And it just that sort of still quiet voice inside you that's telling you which direction to go. For me, it was like, hey, it's time to serve. And that was, you know, uh, both my grandfathers had served in World War II. That was kind of an important part of our family history. And my great great grandfather was the first lawman killed in our county. Back in This is like 1920, but that history of service was there. And my father had been drafted into Vietnam, and just it felt like the timing was right. This is our generation and our time to defend democracy, so and freedom. So um, I had a lot of great influence. One of my biggest mentors was a World War II vet who um, he was in the 42nd Infantry Rainbow Division that was in the Battle of the Bulge and liberated Dachau concentration camp. And so I grew up going to his. He had a farm camp in the summertime. He was a coach and teacher in our community. The guy's a legend. His name is James Cannon Gentry. We actually our town just put a statue of him up this year, which is incredible. It overlooks our Veterans Memorial. But um, I got a really up close look at what it meant to serve, and America's role as liberators within the world. And that's something that, as a kid, sunk in really deeply. And then you're coming out of college, looking for, as Aristotle would say, a lever and a place to stand. The military is that place for me. So I applied through OCS and got one of 8 billets for that 2005 class.
Man, yeah, that's crazy. 11 deployments, like
Yeah.
of varying lengths, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. So about half of those, around six, were 3 to 6 monthers, which is fairly standard, and then a number of deploy for purpose operations as well, about five of those. So that was between, you know, I got my Trident in August of '07. So between '07 and 18, 11 deployments, so averaging about one a year. Obviously, some of those you end up doing inside of in short order, but yeah, it was, there's different things you can do in the military. Obviously, there's opportunities for shore duty and training and stuff like that, and those are great things to do. For me, it was I just wanted to put the hammer down, and I knew there was a finite window of when I was going to serve, and I thought I try to be operational the whole time, and so and had a good result in the sense that it was a good time to be a SEAL for all that we were doing in the world, and then plenty of opportunity to make an impact
Yeah, definitely gainfully employed.
for sure.
Crazy. Um, what was so you ended up getting out? What was your transition like out of the Navy? Was it planned ahead of time? Was it come on quick?
Yeah, so a lot of it was family driven, So met my wife Sarah in 2011. We got married in 14, and something we cared about as a couple was we wanted to have a big family. So we started growing our family, and between 14 and 18, I did several of those deployments. Several were you know leave within hours kind of situation, and so those things obviously they take a toll on the home life, and so there's a lot of friction there, and I felt like I was getting to where I was at the end of like sort of my heavily operational period, going to start moving into some more higher level administrative roles, and so it just seemed like a good time to transition out, and I had a tremendous career, loved every bit of it, wanted to focus on the family, and also that I had this, my father's an entrepreneur, so I always had this sort of desire to run my own business, and so those two things are some push and pull factors there, but it was pre-planned over a year or so ahead of time, and ended up transitioning out in 2018, and I think most people it was exceedingly difficult is what I will say. You know there's this short period where you go from sort of this intense focus you're on. Obviously there's a tremendous amount of ongoing pressure in the military, particularly when you're that operational. So there's a bit of a relief from that, but that doesn't last too long. And then I can remember like thinking, I'm going to take 6 months and try to learn like golf and like have fun and do these things. But they, very quickly you're like, oh, this feeling like what am I going to do for the rest of my life kicks in, and you're like, oh man, it's like I'm like an instant in life now. Like, right. Like I just built up, I was, you went from '01 to '04 over, and you build experience and all this credibility in the community. And now you're kind of, you bring a tremendous amount of life experience, but there's also a lot of things you've missed out on. And so yeah, it's very difficult. And then you've got to figure out what you want to do, how you're going to impact the world, you know, doing military service is one of the most purest forms of like sacrifice and service, because you don't really get to say what you do and where you go, like, right, the government pretty much sets that up, but it's like, hey, you're there to support and defend our country and our democracy and the Constitution, and you're saying, hey, I'm willing to go do those things, whatever it may be, and then when you get out, you're like, hey, where does it make sense to serve now? How I'm going to have an impact? Where's my tribe? And so um, all those things are quite challenging. And for anyone who's getting ready to go through that or is in the midst of it, I would say stay patient. You'll find your way, and try to recognize the opportunities. End up with a lot more personal time and flexibility that I got to invest in my family, and that's truly what I was aiming for. It can be hard though when you've been very career oriented, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm not even sure. I got to figure out which direction I'm going to go even before I can like heavily invest in that. So, yeah, all those things can be challenging, and I encourage people to just stick with it. You'll eventually kind of trust that deepest knowing within you to find the right thing to do and right direction to go.
Awesome. All right, back talking with Navy veteran Josh Thurman, co-founder of Angel Kids AI. So Josh, you got out. I remember that feeling, like when I left the Marine Corps after 8 years of active duty. It's just like this huge sense of relief. The pack had come off, and I'm like, wow, I was just really relaxed. I had no idea how like stressed or spun up I had been after 8 years of that, and then it just all kind of came loose, and I was just a big sense of relief. But yeah, it didn't last very long before all of a sudden I'm like figuring out how to ramp things back up again in some other way, so I can certainly relate to that. But so you ended up, your dad was an entrepreneur. You got this entrepreneur bug. You ended up not going out and getting the job. You jumped right into the entrepreneurship role. So talk about how your beginning stages of entrepreneurship and what that was like.
Yeah. So this is good. This will dovetail into how I got to Angel Kids because this is all, all roads lead to Rome, in some way. But there's, very difficult to predict. That is, it's not really a linear path. I think most people will tell you that it's, you go here and there, and then it all kind of lines up,
Mhm.
to where you end up. But the things that were kind of guiding me were, um, having an entrepreneur mindset and being in the military from, '05 to 18, like the tech boom was exploding. It's just, like there's so many opportunities and new businesses, right? And like
Mhm.
I felt some FOMO of like, oh man, I missed out on all this.
Yeah.
Um, how can I like accelerate my knowledge of software and how to run a business like that? So that was something driving me. And obviously just the entrepreneur thing of, one of the best definitions I've heard about being entrepreneurs, like, I don't want to work in your store. I want to work in my store. Right. And I think, leaders in the military, they want independence, right? They want their responsibility, and they want, they want their actions to directly impact like, how they're spending their time and like what they're doing in the world. And so, that was my driving factor. And I can actually remember, being in, TAPS, I think they still do this. It's like you're getting out and they, force you to go to like a week or two of, basically like training for the civilian world. And, I remember one of the things that I learned is like how the cloud business was taking off. So I get out, and an old family friend, uh, who had been running the AI lab out at San Diego State, had started a, distributed cloud computing company just by himself. It was like, gearing up. And so I saw that as an opportunity. I was like, hey, this is going to be a great learning opportunity. And, in some ways I was fairly naive into how difficult what I was going to do was. But at the same time, I always encourage people to do hard things because, you'll either succeed, which is good, or, you will have pushed yourself as far as you could, and that's going to be a tremendous learning experience. Um, so jumped in and, we started this distributed cloud computing company. Ended up going through like, as probably people will tell you on their startup journey, a couple of pivots over the first couple of years because, we jumped in with this huge concept, had raised a little bit of money, and it wasn't too long. We're like, this isn't going to work. Like we just realized it wasn't going to work. And you're like, okay, well, we learned this. We have some money. Let's transition into other things. And frankly, we learned through failure. And eventually, by about the third year, fortunately, when we had bootstrapped this,
Right.
took no salary for a year. But I had saved up and kind of prepared to do that, so I was in position to do that. And, um, by the third year, we finally came across like, hey, this is the concept, this is the messaging, this is the target audience, put it all together, and, ended up producing a great. It's a DevOps enablement company called Ufeezy, and then we support, some of those popular software projects, in the world, with we do automated test environments. So if you're in the software world, what that means is we help improve a company's development velocity. So how quickly, how efficiently they can, produce software. And one of the key things, from an operational background, the thing, and I wasn't too deep on the technical side, but recognizing, oh, here's a bottleneck in the way people produce software, and we can produce a solution that gets rid of the bottleneck, right? That's like a classic military, like here's a solution to like overcoming friction. And that was a message that I could carry, and help us be successful in that regard. And then, you know, in the macros, though, what happened in the, three, four, 5 years is I learned how to be a tech entrepreneur. I learned how to build how software is built and how you do things to get a company off the ground and through often several layers of failure. Um, but it was a very compressed learning period, and like ultimately, like getting on the other side of uh, my tech catch up. That's what happened, and so that was a I consider that a win.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah,
entrepreneurship's a process. So
yeah,
the more times you go through that process, even if it's a failure, you get better at the process, and then you just
that's right.
take the other. It's just a matter of taking another vehicle to the fight, but you get better and better at the process along the way. So,
Yeah,
um, entrepreneurial failures are never, there might be a financial failure, but learning the entrepreneurial process in the meantime is definitely is hugely beneficial, and you just go jump back into the next product or the next service idea and continue on. So
yeah,
ultimately, somewhere from there, you got into the AI concept with Angel Kids.
yeah, yeah. And so, um, with Uffizi, things are going, reasonably well. But I will say one thing that like uh, bugged me is, uh, the mission, the cause. Like, what am I, how am I benefiting? Like, in the military, it's very clear. It was very clear to me like how I was serving, and it became less clear. And so, um, when a previous friend from high school had come to me with this concept for Angel Kids and asked me to be one of the co-founders, um, everything just lined up to be like, oh, this is a mission I can clearly get behind, and I can use all these skills that I've just learned and put them into a brand new venture. And um, so that's how at about the 5 year point of having built up Uffizi, and it was at a good point where I could sort of back away from that and then dive into Angel Kids and tackle incredibly important mission, which is uh, the internet is grossly unsafe for kids, and
Mhm.
it's more than unsafe. It's extremely detrimental to their mental health, even their physical well-being. And we've got this societal level problem, which is the current internet, and particularly social media. And so this concept of, hey, AI is this incredibly powerful tool. We're in the beginning of the AI revolution, right? It's going to be like electricity, industrial revolution, software revolution. Now we're at the beginning of AI revolution. And if we look back at how the internet has been built, it's been a lot of Wild West. It's been very open. Some people would advocate for that, but there's been a huge amount of negative baggage that has come with that, and it's been particularly harmful for kids. If we look back over the past decade, um, we now have the data, and there's a credit, to sociologists, Jonathan Haidt and then Dr. Jean Twenge, for sort of giving us um, the knowledge and also the language to understand kind of what's happened. But we're seeing skyrocketing depression, anxiety, and self harm in our kids, to say the least.
Yeah.
And that's almost entirely due to the addictive nature of the internet and social media. And so at Angel Kids, our mission is to use AI to reverse those things. Um, we're in a point in time where AI sort of allowing for a relitigation of like who the winners are in terms of like how do we interface with technology, whether it be our devices, our search, the browser, um, how we interface with all these things. That's going to be figured out in the next 5 to 10 years, and it's not clear that the incumbents will win or who will win this space. But what is clear is that we need a lot more consciousness in the development of these things, and frankly, we need less innovation. Right? It's about, hey, technology has been used to extract more and more attention out of people, and the products have become addictive because in the end, the people are the products. Technology shouldn't be that way, right? Technology is a tool. Like, it should help us thrive at the goals of like our own lives and not be like, at a minimum, they're a massive distraction from the things you probably want and need to be doing. But more perniciously, they're really you know destroying people's mental health, and that's a huge problem.
Yeah, no kidding. So, what are some of the things that with Angel Kids that you guys have been able to do?
Yeah, so we have an application where you can think about it as extending parenting online, where we're entering a phase now where everyone's going to have sort of personal AI, and let me frame it like this. So um, a lot of us have just started paying attention to AI in the last year plus. Like when ChatGPT came out, that was like a huge wake up that okay, AI is kind of here now. Um, these huge tech companies, if you look at Meta and Google and TikTok and others, they've been using AI to drive their algorithms for a decade plus, right, in the background to basically find out, hey, what is the thing that hooks this person in, and we're going to feed them more and more of that, and we're going to try to addict them to our products so that we can serve up their attention um, to advertisers, right, in a market that happens far far away from our purview. And so that's what happens when AI is working against you, and it's in the hands of big tech, and you don't have really you have very little control to no control over, frankly, even what's getting served in your feed, right? It used to not be like that, but as they needed to get more and more, extract more and more attention out of people, they had to make the products more addictive. And so we're flipping that on its head and we're like, hey, what if AI is working for you, you being the parent and the child, and it can filter out the things you don't want to see, right? Like you can look at all the overexposure problems the internet has. It can also, what if it were to like, you know, we have all these nudges that happen to us all day, these little notifications, hey, basically telling us to get back online, right? It's coming through my computer, it's coming through my phone, through my email.
Yep.
you know, what if you had your own nudge and the nudge was, hey, you need to quit spending so much time on your device and like, go play soccer, take your dog for a walk, play a board game with your family, like all the things that we used to do that were critical to important relationships. Like we need to be doing more of those things and less time online. And so
Yeah.
um, that's the foundation of Angel AI is like an AI that's working on your behalf to really support your goals as an individual, and we're flipping how that works right now. It's like AI working for them. This is AI that's working for you.
Yeah. So it's like an app you have on your phone or
It is. So it's an AI powered browser that's made just for kids. And
okay.
so kids interact with it by talking to the AI, and they can search things. They can only search child appropriate things, right? Or age appropriate things. They can do research. They can a lot of what young kids do. This our first app is for age 5 to 12. Is about entertainment online, and so they can access YouTube videos and Netflix and Disney Plus, but they're served up in a way that's non-addictive, meaning they have to put input to say, hey, what type of show they want to watch. When it comes and plays, um, it doesn't autoplay to the next thing or do an infinite scroll. And so just these little design changes about like, hey, what's the ultimate end state that we're trying for? It's like, hey, our tech we're like, hey, as a company, all our founders are parents, right? And our
Mm.
kids are varying ages, but my oldest is 9, and I've got 4 and one on the way. So I'm heavily invested in like what the tech future looks like for them,
Yeah.
and you know the way it's been can't keep going, right? Because we can't have all these huge mental health problems, but you also can't completely reject health. We're not reject tech. We're not going back to like, the Stone Ages here. So there's got to be a third path. And like, that's the path that we're creating where um, technology should be a tool that you use for, it can be used to find out information. It can be used for entertainment, but it has to be kept in its place and its right balance in life. And we've gotten that balance like totally out of whack right now. And so, um, yeah, so that's how Angel Kids operates. Is
Yeah.
it's think about it as the early internet for young kids, and it's everything in it is age appropriate. So parents have peace of mind, and kids, are getting information. Kids are curious. They have a lot of questions. Like
Yeah.
my kids are asking me questions all day, and a lot of times I don't have the answers. But when they can go, search it up in a safe way, I'm not going to let my kid on Google, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
Angel
if
Kids
you're
is
dealing with
perfect.
tech savvy kids, are kids able to find a way around this thing? Like you get kids a little older, they're like, no, my friends can search whatever they want, but I'm limited to this, and they're going to find a way around it. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. For younger kids, it's a bit easier because you parents can have a little bit more control over the device. We actually marry this new interface with parental controls, and so uh, one thing we have this thing called Parent Assistant, where this is an AI that the parents can use to help manage your kids' screen time diet. And so, if your kid, like one of the conflicts, like if you've had a kid on a device in the last 10 years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you're trying to offboard them from whatever they're doing, it's going to be a fight, right? They've had this arousal. They're watching whatever they're watching. They don't want to get off of that. And um, with Angel, you can text Angel and say, "Hey, please offboard my child in 5 minutes and tell them it's time to go to school or whatever the thing may do." And
Really?
like Angel will say, "Hey, you got 5 minutes, and now here's a big counter, right?" And then boom, the device goes black because they can't use the apps anymore, and they're like, they still might not be super happy, but at least you're not having to go do that,
That's
conflict
kind of cool.
reduction. So like, that's one of the innovative ways we're combining this new interface with, historical parental control kind of tooling.
Yeah. Can you like tell your kids to go clean their room so the
Oh
parents?
yeah, and you can bet yeah, exactly. You can tell Angel to send them whatever message you want, right? And so when they're and it's if you've had your kids on the screen and you're talking to them, like they're so glued in they don't even hear you. You know what I mean? So
Oh, yeah.
a nice notification that pops up from Angel from your parent is a way to get their attention.
Wow. How do we find out more about Angel Kids AI if someone's interested in checking it out?
Yeah, please, follow us on Instagram at Angel Kids AI. Check out our website. So right now you can join our wait list, and we'll be launching our app to general audience in 2025, early 2025. So,
Mhm.
but please join the wait list now and tune in to our socials to find out what we're doing.
Awesome, man. So how long have you guys actually been working on this specific thing?
Yeah, so we've been working on it for almost a year and a half now.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
yeah,
So yeah, almost launch time. That's cool.
yeah.
Uh well, we are getting close to the end of our time, Josh. I do want to give you the last word. If if you're talking to somebody on the way out of the military, just got out and they're looking to get into entrepreneurship, what kind of advice comes to mind?
Yeah, so the first thing I tell people is to reset or like reset their expectations. And I think it can be a difficult transition from you've been on a career path that many have tread, right? And your success is really about how well are you doing in this organization, but the organization itself is not at risk of failing or defaulting like in a big like the US, you were backed by the US government, right? That is like a huge thing. Like
Right.
God willing, that doesn't fail anytime soon or ever, right? So, but when you're out now, you're out on your own. Like you've got to compete in the free market, and that can be like that's a completely different dynamic. And so, recognize that, and then my this will dovetail. My next piece of advice is, if you are wanting, you have an entrepreneurial bent, you want to get on that path, look for opportunities where you have like some really unique knowledge that like the rest of the world can't easily get, or some sort of unique expertise that is also like a barrier to other people. Because particularly in the digital age, when so many products and services are available online, like you're competing at national and global scales if you have something that's a high competition kind of environment. So you're going to need some sort of unique value proposition that to really set yourself apart. So those are like my opening things.
Yeah.
I can keep going if you want, but yeah,
That's yeah, bits and pieces,
yeah,
So good stuff, man. All right.
yeah.
Well, yeah, we are out of time. Appreciate you sharing your veteran entrepreneurial success story. Look forward to the big launch of Angel Kids AI and your future success. And maybe check back with us in a year or two and let us know how it's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Joe.
All right. You bet. All right. These two veterans are Oscar Mike.